is up, my movie fanatics, and welcome to another Fear Face-Off. This is episode 3. Something very unique and different actually happened. I picked two movies that ended up being like the same type of movie, which is really, really weird, and I'll get to that in the end. So what did I end up doing? I ended up watching The Thing, and I ended up watching The Fly. Before I jump into it, I wanted to say thank you, 31 Film Talk, for giving me the suggestion to The Thing. He actually said to do all three, but I couldn't find the earliest version of The Thing. I looked at my library, I looked online to see if I could just rent it like through Amazon and stuff. I don't know if I was looking in the right areas or what, but I just couldn't find it, so I figured might as well just do the two instead of all three. Hope you still enjoy this though, bud. So, let's get into it. First up, I want to start with The Thing. Now, The Thing is a very interesting movie, and I can't believe I didn't remember this as much as I wanted to. I saw bits and pieces of the remake in 2011 when I remember when it first came out on Blu-ray. I watched bits and pieces over a friend's house, but we were partying, and but I never saw the original, which I've had people talk about it, and I'm glad I got to watch both. So let's get right into it. The Thing, the original Thing, was made in 1982, and it was directed by John Carpenter, who we all love. I'm sure everybody knows who he is. And it starred Kurt Russell as RJ and Wilford Brimley as Dr. Blair. When I saw Wilford Brimley's name, I actually chuckled because all I could picture was the diabetes commercials. And you know what I'm talking about, like he did those diabetes commercials. Okay, that's off subject, but I just had to get that off my chest. Okay. And then the remake came in 2011. The director was it's going somewhere around my face. Not even gonna attempt that. I don't want to butcher a director's name. No, it's not happening. And it starred Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Kate Lloyd, and Joel Edgerton as Sam Carter, and Ulrich Thompson as Dr. Sander. Now, these two movies were so much alike. I say this every time. Yet so much different, okay? So this time I'm going to take a different twist. I'm just going to talk about... I do want to shorten it. I still feel like these are like 20-some minutes long, so let's shorten it up. What did I know the biggest differences were? The biggest difference came right off the bat with the intro of the movie. The whole, I would say the first 20 minutes of the film was completely different. In 1982... we have these United States researchers, and they're on their base, and a random dog comes running into the base, and they're just like, what the heck's going on? There's a helicopter circling, and then there's the guy lands, they find out he's a Norwegian, they end up shooting him, because they can't figure out why he's shooting at an innocent husky. They're just like, what the crap is going on? They play it off as cabin fever, blah, 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 maybe whatever. 2011, it starts with, like, you see this cave in Antarctica, and, like, you see something there, and they assemble a team together to discover what they have found. They get, I don't know what her technical term is, but she's one of those people that studies, like, mummified animals and stuff, all that good stuff. I don't really know what that's really called. Correct me if I don't know, but it was really cool what her job was. So that was the big difference. In 2011, they cut out the Thing itself out of the ice. In 1982, it was already cut out, and they find it later because of some events that happen. So the next biggest thing was how the Thing introduced itself. In 1982, remember I said this odd husky dog that was like walking around? Well, they take the dog in, because obviously you're in Antarctica and you have sled dogs, so they're just like, why not? One more dog. Let's throw the dog in. The dog ends up laying down in the middle of all the other husky dogs, and like the other ones are just kind of like, hey, what's up? We're tired. We ran all day. And all of a sudden, it just starts doing like, that's horrible impression. I don't care. But and all of a sudden, it just turns into this really unique looking thing. Hence the name, The Thing. And it just like starts consuming the other dogs. You know, one dog tries to bite out of the cage, it gets trapped, and you're just like, whoa, what's going on here? It's just crazy. Meanwhile, Kurt Russell and a few guys actually end up flying their helicopter to the Norwegian base, and that is how they discover something is weird here. They find some old VHSs, and they find some documentation. The whole place is burnt to the ground, and they find this specimen that looks half human, half, I don't even know, zombie, I guess. Just, it's real distorted. It doesn't really look like anything from this world. Yeah, so that is that. In 2011, they uncover the specimen. They have it in their base. Now, they're working with the Norwegians. In 1982, they don't work. It's the United States, then you have the Norwegians. Here, you have the Norwegians working with the United States. They form an entire team together, which I thought was pretty cool. And so the leader wants a tissue sample. Sarah's opposed against it. She's like, no, no, no. They get a tissue sample, and they're all excited because they found an alien, and they're celebrating. And then the one guy goes to the restroom. He comes back. He's standing looking at the specimen, and he's like just amazed by it. One of the guys scare him, and boom, it flies out. Completely flies out of the ice. Just like, it was so cool. Flies through the roof. They chase it down. They find it under a building, and they end up freaking out. They don't know what's going on. It kills one of the guys and sucks him in, and it starts like devouring him. Now that's basically like how it shows itself. In 1982, it devours a dog. In 2011, it devours a person. Long story short, one big thing they have in common is they burn this thing. So they burn it, they get it, they dissect it. They see in 1982, they see the dog parts, and they're like, it's fusing with it. It's basically sucking it dry, and it's trying to turn into the dog. Same thing happens in 2011. Excuse me. I'm getting excited. I can't help it. I'm sorry. They dissect it, and they go, he's fusing with this thing. It's basically sucking him dry. What's going on? Very, very cool. Let's jump ahead because there's a lot of talking. They figure out that this alien basically can shapeshift. They did some scientific work. That's all irrelevant. It's just boring stuff. Let's get to the good stuff. Both stories had a test to find out. At this point, they realize that they have an alien on their hands and there's a problem, and they have a test. The test is, in 2011, is they find out that the alien cannot create inorganic material. Like, for an example, one of the guys that it eats has a metal plate in it. They find out that it can't do fillings in the teeth. And that is what makes Sarah go, hey, let's create a test. Open your mouth. Everybody opens their mouth, and they see if there's fillings in there. And that is how they tell if you are human or not. That was kind of cheesy in my eyes. Like, I don't know. I think they could have done something better. Especially after watching the 1982 version, when their test was, same thing happened. They discovered how to make this test by cutting your finger, putting your blood in a petri dish, and taking a copper wire, burning it. They get to make it real nice and hot, and then they put it in there. If it just smolders or makes a tss real quick, you know it's tissue. But they said that because it's alive, if something's alive, it's not going to want to get hurt or burnt. It's going to flight, like, fight or flight response. And that's how they do that. So why did they come up with this test in the first place? Well, the test was designed because the thing is very intelligent, and it ends up wrecking their labs. 2011, it burns it down. In 1982, it sucks all the blood dry, all the tissue samples and stuff that they had. So yeah, they had to compromise and come up with something unique. So throughout this entire movie, they're trying to figure out who's an alien. Do they do it? You know, a lot of people die, a lot of people get hurt, a lot of explosions, a lot of gunfire. It gets very fun. Now let's get to the ending, because this is the most important part. 1982, Kurt Russell he decides, like, look, we're not going to stop this thing. Let's just blow this place to sky high. So they start burning down all the rooms. They get down to the boiler room, and they start rigging it with explosives. Well, Kurt is the last guy alive at this point, and you hear like just rumbling, and all of a sudden the ground starts lifting up, and the thing comes out of the ground. He gets knocked down. After he lights a stick of dynamite, he throws the stick of dynamite. It hits right in front of the alien, or the thing, blows it up, and he's sitting there. Now another gentleman, Charlie, who was part of the team who actually chased the thing, he got lost in the storm. Kurt Russell's to the point, RJ's to the point where he's just so exhausted, and he says to him, he knows he can't trust anybody, so he says to him, what do you want to do now? Charlie says that to RJ, and RJ says, well, let's just lay here and wait. And that is how the movie ends. Not a bad ending. In 2011, they thought they killed the last thing, but the one character, Sander, is actually the last thing. Now, I didn't mention this before, but the thing is able to, like, detach a piece of its body and kind of manipulate into something smaller, and then attach itself to somebody and then turn into that person as well. So Kate and Carter are chasing Sander, and they're trying to figure out where he's going, but they figure out that he's going to the spaceship that they uncovered in the beginning. And it's really cool because they end up going on the ship. He actually starts turning it on. Sarah falls in. Carter gets in another way. And the thing shows itself to Kate. And she's freaking out. And she throws a grenade. It blows it up. Everything looks good to go, blah, blah, blah. Kate and Carter go back to the thing. And Kate says to Carter, let me put the flamethrower, because they use flamethrowers in both movies a lot, back into the thing, or in the back of the trunk, and she comes over and goes, you know how I knew you were human? And he goes, how? And she goes, your earring. He goes like this, and she goes, it's the other ear, and then she burns him. She gets into the, I guess you would call it, like it's a truck type thing, it's a snowmobile truck, and pulls away. When the credits roll up, you see a very interesting ending, and this is what I really liked. One of the Norwegians, Lars, ends up surviving, and you see a dog run out. Now, in 2011, one of the team members had a dog, and that was the first thing to die. But you see this dog run. It's the same husky, and it's running, and Lars gets into the helicopter because it's a rescue team, and they're shooting at the dog, and that's how it ends. So, all in all, it was a really great movie. There's some differences. 2011, they used a helicopter crash for more, I guess, suspense and stuff. You don't see any of that in 1982. But basically, the beginning and the ends are completely different. The whole middle is pretty much the same. The way the alien is exactly the same. They have a dog involved, and fire kills it. So who's going to take the cake on this one? Well, I'm going to have to give it to the new one. And this is only because the ending made a lot more sense to me. I maybe didn't understand the ending of 1982, but I just didn't like how Kurt Russell blew it up, and then Charlie comes over, and it's just like, hey, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to lie here. After all of the not trusting people doing tests and everything just kind of blew up. I mean, yeah, they both ended that way, but at least Kate was the one who burnt Carter up and, made the whole thing. So, as for, I did enjoy both films very much. I also would say the 1982 version explains the thing better. So if you're going to watch these movies, which I highly recommend, watch 1982 first, because you're going to learn more about the thing. In 2011, they're just kind of like, I don't know. They pull tissue, and it's just weird and just kind of choppy at times. So once again, the remake takes the cake on this one. So the next movie I watched was The Fly. I was very, very, very excited to watch these. I have never seen them, and I can't believe I haven't seen them because I don't know what I was missing. I'm going to do this completely different, guys. This is going to be real short. These two movies have nothing in same, but three things. A fly, a mad scientist, and teleporters. That is all that's the same about these films. So I'm basically going to give you a synopsis of each film and tell you which one wins and why, because they complete, like, these movies are night and day in my eyes. So let's start with The Fly in 1958. 1958, the director was Kurt Newman. We had David Henson as Andre, Patricia Owens as Helena, and Vincent Price, one of my favorite actors, played Uncle Francisco. This movie is really cool. Quick synopsis of it. There's a family, okay? And you have Andre and Helena are married, and Andre's brother is played by Vincent Price, Uncle Francisco. He basically spends his life, not his life, but most of his time down in the basement. This is where a laboratory is. And he's always inventing. He's waiting for that one big thing to happen. Well, he finally gets a chance where he makes a teleporter. And it's really, really cool because the first time he teleports something successfully, it's a china ashtray. I thought it was a dish, but they said it was an ashtray. They teleport it, and he's so excited to tell Helena, and she loves it, she supports him, but when you flip it over, it said made in China backwards. So there was a little bit of something wrong with it. Well, he makes some calculations, and he fixes it, and it's really cool. Now this is where it gets really interesting. He makes a bigger pod, or teleporter, to transport somebody. Physically teleport somebody. He gets enough kahunas to put himself in there. Now keep in mind, like, they've shown at this point many testing things. They did, after he fixed the lettering, he did a newspaper, they did a guinea pig, a cat. There was a few things, the cat actually went wrong, but it leads up to this. So he teleports himself. What happens is a fly gets in there, and when he teleports himself, it fuses with him, and this is where it got so awesome. The next day after the big teleportation and the fuse, Andre tells his wife to look for a fly in the house with a white head. They search for it, they don't find it, blah, blah, blah. Well, he ends up showing Helena that he has a hand of a fly and a head of a fly, and he eats like a fly as well. But you don't really see it for a while because he wears a mask or a blanket over his head. But she's giving him instructions on how important it is, and she can't figure out what's going on. And they end up catching the fly eventually, but it flies away into the garden. Well, this whole story is being told by Helena herself because in the beginning of the film, which I left out for a reason, she puts Andre in a press, in a factory press that they own, and smashes his head and arm. So she's telling the story through the cops. Basically, the cops never believe it until the very end when they're sitting in the garden. Vincent Price is sitting out there too, because their son, Andre and Helena's son, tells him she found the fly in a spiderweb outside. Cop comes out. They see this human fly hybrid trapped in the spiderweb. The detective gets so freaked out he smashes it, and it's just like, well, detective, you just smashed a human fly, and Helena just smashed her husband, or a fly human, basically. And that was pretty much the end. He lets her off, and Vincent Price basically raises the child with Helena, and they're a close, tight-knit family. So The Fly in 1986, the remake, if you even want to call it that, the director is David Cronenberg. I can't pronounce his name. We have Jeff Goldblum as Seth, Gina Davis as Veronica, and John gets as Stathis? I don't really know. I didn't catch his name, but he's the ex-boyfriend. We'll just call him ex-boyfriend, because I'm not good with names. Anyway. So Jeff Goldblum is a very lonely scientist. The movie opens up with him hitting on Veronica, come to my house, see what I've done, blah, 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 blah. He wants to impress her, finds her pretty. They go there, he shows her the telepods, he calls them, and uses her stalking and teleports it. She's a journalist. Long story short, she's impressed. She starts tape recording the whole thing, takes it to her editor, which is her ex-boyfriend. That's the guy, I can't pronounce his name. And he doesn't believe her. So over time, they keep working with it, and she starts falling for him. He tries to do a monkey. We find out that the telepods cannot transport organic material. They do a monkey, and the monkey basically just comes up as nothing. It's just like a blob of guts. It's pretty cool. And so he finds out while trying to eat a steak with Veronica one night that he needs to tell the computer to understand what organic material is. So that's what he does. He does a second ape, and it is very successful. So they're just trying to celebrate where Veronica goes and meets her editor, her ex-boyfriend, because he put something under the door. It shows like a sketch, or like a version, a pre-version of the magazine cover. It's really cool. And he thinks that she's going to sleep with him and all this stuff, so he gets enough courage because he's drunk to go into the telepod, but a fly flies in with him, and he transports himself in, but he's A-okay at first. Over time, he slowly starts transforming into a fly. He pushes Veronica away, but when I mean transforms into a fly, first we see him have very good strength. He starts eating a lot of sugar, and he gets these real big, thick hairs, coarse hairs on the back of him. It gets to the point where his teeth start falling out, his fingernails start falling out, he gets pimples, and his face turns more and more fly-like. He can climb on walls, yada, yada, yada. We find out that Veronica actually gets pregnant with Seth's baby. Seth learns about this because he's on the roof, and she is telling the ex-boyfriend about it, and she came over to tell Seth, but couldn't tell him because he's just too mutilated and looks too much like a fly. He actually follows them to the hospital where she's going to get an abortion. He breaks through the hospital, snatches her, takes her back to the house. The ex-boyfriend follows, grabs a shotgun. They go there, and he ends up trying to shoot Seth, because Seth, as I said, is basically a fly at this point. But Seth spits the puke that flies do to eat on his hand. It melts his hand. He does it on his foot. Because the ex-boyfriend's in so much pain, he passes out. So she put what Seth's goal is to merge himself with her and the baby to make the perfect family. Because he figures if he can merge himself with a fly, he can do it with anything. So he ends up trying to merge them. He actually has a prototype pod that in the beginning of the movie, and he hooks them up to the two good ones, and he throws her in there, starts backing himself in there. Well, the ex-boyfriend wakes up, shoots the wires and stuff to the pod that Veronica's in, disabling it, and Seth tries to break out, and right before he breaks out, boom, he gets zapped, and the door to the pod goes with him, and it fuses him with a door, and he comes crawling out. So what Veronica ends up doing is shooting him in the head and killing him. It's pretty much that in a jiffy. There's a lot more to it, but it's a very interesting film to watch. So who takes the cake? Well, come on, guys, the classic. The 1986, I just felt lost. It was boring. It was like nothing you've seen before. He was basically turning into a mutant fly. Whereas in 1958, it was more of an accident,
and he loved his family, and he wanted them to save him. Because the only way to save him was to take that exact fly and do the teleportation again, but backwards. Like, he had it all figured out. It was really, really cool. I love the whole family-orientedness of 1958. I love the whole plot. I thought, me personally, I thought the special effects were phenomenal, considering the time of the movie. Holy crap, I thought they were awesome. And 1986, though, too, had some really good had some really, really, really good special effects. But yeah, just because I don't even know if I can consider it a remake, it was basically, as I said in the beginning, all that was the same was a fly, a mad scientist, and teleporters. That was all that was the same. The entire story itself was different from 1986 to 58. So I'm going to have to give it to the original 1958 film because it was just so good. I'm going to watch it right now. As soon as I get off here, I'm going to go watch it again. Because it's one of those movies I can just keep watching and watching. And it never really, it's just like Psycho or something. It just won't get old. So I want to thank you guys for joining me on another Fear Face Off. I'm so glad you guys are enjoying these. I'm getting a lot of thumbs up and talks about them on Twitter. So guys, don't be scared to suggest other movies. Stay tuned. In a couple of days I will have another one up because October's flying and I want to try to get through as many movies as I can. So thank you guys. If you're enjoying this, give me a like or give me a thumbs up. Please share these videos. I want more people to see them because I'm getting so much positive feedback. And as always, take care and happy watching.